Have you ever looked back at a relationship and wondered how something that felt so real could slowly disappear without a clear explanation? Not because you cheated, not because you lied, not because you stopped caring, but because somewhere along the way, despite doing everything you thought a loving man should do, she became distant. The messages became shorter, the excitement faded, the affection became less natural, and one day you found yourself staring at your phone, asking a question that millions of men have asked before you. What happened? What did I do wrong? And perhaps the most painful part of all was that she couldn't even explain it herself. She simply said, "I don't know. Something changed." Those words destroy a man, not because they're cruel, but because they leave him with no enemy to fight and no mistake to correct. So he does what most people do. He starts searching for answers. He watches videos, reads articles, listens to advice, and almost everywhere he hears the same thing. Communicate more, show her how much you care, fight for the relationship, never give up. And so he gives even more attention, more understanding, more sacrifices, more patience, more effort, until one day he realizes something terrifying. The more he gives, the further she seems to drift away, and suddenly nothing makes sense anymore. Because according to logic, love should reward devotion, love should reward loyalty, love should reward effort, yet reality doesn't always follow logic, and this is where most men make their greatest mistake. They try to understand attraction with the mind, when attraction was never born there, because attraction is emotional before it is rational. Long before people explain their feelings, they experience them. Long before someone says, "I love you," their nervous system has already decided how they feel in your presence, and that changes everything. Because people rarely fall in love because someone deserves it. They fall in love because of what they experience, because of how they feel around a person, because of what that person's presence awakens inside them. And here's the difficult truth. Sometimes being a good man isn't enough. Sometimes being available isn't enough. Sometimes giving everything isn't enough. Because love doesn't grow through effort alone. It grows through emotional experience, and emotional experience cannot be forced. Think about the people who have left the deepest impact on your life. Perhaps a friend, perhaps a mentor, perhaps someone you loved years ago. Now ask yourself something. Was it because they constantly tried to impress you? Was it because they always said yes? Was it because they made you the center of their world? Probably not. What you remember most is how you felt around them. Maybe they brought calm. Maybe they brought excitement. Maybe they made life feel larger. Maybe they had a presence that couldn't be explained. And that's because human beings remember emotions far more than actions. Actions matter, but emotions are what give those actions meaning. And nowhere is this more true than in romantic relationships. A woman rarely falls in love because a man checked every box. Because attraction isn't a job interview, love isn't a reward system, and emotions don't operate like mathematics. 2 + 2 doesn't always equal 4 in matters of the heart. Sometimes the man who gives less is valued more. Not because he's playing games, not because he's manipulative, but because his entire life doesn't revolve around being chosen. And that's what creates something incredibly attractive. Not mystery, not arrogance, not emotional distance, but something far more powerful: wholeness. Because there is a profound difference between wanting love and needing love. Wanting says, "I enjoy your presence." Needing says, "I can't feel okay without you." Wanting gives freedom. Needing creates pressure. And pressure is one of the fastest ways to suffocate attraction. Most men never realize when this shift happens. At first they're relaxed, they're confident, they're funny, they have hobbies, they spend time with friends, they live their lives, and because they're not trying to control anything, they appear natural, authentic, free. Ironically, that's often when attraction begins. But then something changes. Feelings become deeper. And with deeper feelings comes fear. Fear of losing her, fear of saying the wrong thing, fear of not being enough, fear of another heartbreak. And without noticing, he slowly transforms. He starts replying faster. He begins overthinking messages. He checks whether she liked his story. He analyzes every word. He becomes more available, more accommodating, more careful, more anxious. And perhaps he believes this proves his love. But underneath all those actions lies something else: fear. And fear has an energy that people feel, not because they consciously detect it, but because emotions are contagious. Human beings are emotional creatures long before they are logical creatures, which is why someone can say all the right words and still feel wrong, and someone else can say very little and feel safe, because presence speaks louder than sentences. You can feel confidence, you can feel insecurity, you can feel peace, you can feel desperation, and women feel this just as deeply as men do, not because women are mysterious creatures, but because all human beings respond to emotional energy. And this brings us to a truth that many people avoid because it sounds uncomfortable. People don't value what is endlessly available, not because they're selfish, not because they're cruel, but because the brain adapts. Psychologists call it hedonic adaptation. What is constantly present becomes normal, and what becomes normal stops producing emotional intensity. Think about oxygen. You don't spend your day appreciating every breath because it's always there, but hold your breath for 30 seconds and suddenly oxygen becomes the most important thing in existence. The same principle exists in emotional life. Constant certainty creates comfort, but comfort alone doesn't create desire, because desire requires movement, curiosity, possibility, space. And most men accidentally eliminate all of these, not because they're weak, not because they're foolish, but because they confuse love with constant availability. They believe love means sacrificing themselves, always saying yes, always understanding, always waiting, always giving, until slowly, without noticing, they disappear. And that is the tragedy. Not that she left, but that somewhere along the way, he left himself first. He abandoned his routines, stopped seeing friends, ignored his dreams, neglected his health, forgot his passions, and little by little, his entire emotional world became dependent on one person, which is a burden no human being was designed to carry. Because nobody wants to feel responsible for someone else's identity. Nobody wants to become another person's reason for existing. Love cannot breathe under that weight. And perhaps that's why so many relationships collapse, not because people stopped loving, but because one person slowly disappeared inside the relationship. And when you disappear, there's no one left to love, because love was never meant to replace your life. It was meant to enrich it. And this is where everything begins to change. Not when you learn how to attract women, not when you memorize techniques, not when you become someone else, but when you remember who you were before fear took over. Before approval became your addiction, before love became something you begged for. Because the strongest relationships are never built by two incomplete people trying to save each other. They're built by two whole people walking beside each other, not because they need to, but because they choose to. And that difference changes everything. Because the moment you stop chasing love to complete yourself, you become capable of experiencing love without losing yourself. And strangely enough, that is exactly where real attraction begins. Not in effort, not in perfection, but in emotional strength. And very few men ever discover that, because they spend years trying to become more lovable, without realizing that the greatest transformation begins when they stop asking, "How do I make her love me?" and start asking, "Who have I become?" without realizing it. Because the answer to that question can change the rest of your life. Most men believe that love is built by giving more attention, more understanding, more reassurance, more sacrifices. And on the surface, that sounds noble. After all, isn't love supposed to be selfless? Isn't love supposed to mean putting someone else first? Not exactly, because there is a hidden difference between giving from abundance and giving from fear. And the difference is invisible to the eyes, but impossible to hide emotionally. A man who gives from abundance says, "I care about you because I want to." A man who gives from fear says, "I hope this is enough to make you stay." The actions may look identical, but the energy behind them is completely different, and people always feel energy before they understand it. That's why you can sit beside someone who says all the right things and still feel uncomfortable. And you can sit beside someone who says very little and somehow feel safe. Because emotional states communicate louder than words. This is why attraction often disappears quietly. Not because one person became evil, not because someone stopped being attractive, but because fear slowly replaced authenticity. And fear has a strange effect on human behavior. It makes people chase. It makes people over-explain. It makes people seek certainty. And certainty, when demanded, often destroys the very thing it is trying to secure. Think about this. When a relationship begins, there is space. Neither person knows exactly what will happen. There is curiosity, excitement, possibility. No one is trying to force anything. Nobody is asking for guarantees. And because of that freedom, emotions can grow naturally, but then feelings deepen and fear enters. Suddenly one person starts trying to control the future. They want definitions, promises, reassurance, constant proof. Not because they are bad, but because they are afraid. Afraid of losing what they have found. Yet love has a strange paradox. The tighter you hold it, the faster it slips through your fingers. Because human beings are designed to move toward freedom, not pressure. And pressure does not always look obvious. Sometimes pressure sounds like, "Do you still love me? Why didn't you text me? What's wrong? Are we okay? Do you miss me? Where is this relationship going?" These questions seem innocent, and occasionally they are. But when they come from anxiety rather than curiosity, they carry an invisible weight, and the other person feels it. Because what you're really asking is not, "How are you feeling?" What you're asking is, "Please calm my fears." And over time, that responsibility becomes exhausting. Not because she doesn't care, but because no one can permanently regulate another person's emotional world. Eventually, they begin to feel less like a partner and more like an emotional life support system. And that's where attraction starts to die. Not through hatred, not through betrayal, but through emotional exhaustion. This is why confidence has always been attractive. Not because confidence is loud, not because confidence dominates, but because confidence creates emotional safety. A confident man does not need constant reassurance. He enjoys love, but he survives without it. He appreciates affection, but he doesn't collapse without it. He can miss someone deeply without losing himself. And that emotional independence creates something powerful. It creates freedom. And freedom allows attraction to breathe. Now here's something most men never understand. A woman doesn't emotionally invest because you constantly invest in her. She emotionally invests when she begins investing herself. Read that again. People value what they invest in, not what is endlessly handed to them. This is true in friendships, business, family, and especially relationships. Emotional investment happens when someone starts thinking about you, wondering about you, remembering things you said, looking forward to seeing you, caring about your feelings, thinking about your future. And none of these things can be forced, because emotional investment is voluntary. It happens naturally, and one of the biggest mistakes men make is interrupting that process. Imagine planting a seed. Every 5 minutes you dig it up to check whether it has grown. Eventually you kill it. Relationships work the same way. Many men destroy attraction because they keep demanding proof before feelings have had time to develop. They seek certainty too soon. They ask for labels too soon. They push for commitment too soon. Not because they're selfish, but because fear whispers, "If I don't secure this now, I'll lose her." And ironically, that fear often creates the exact outcome they wanted to avoid, because emotions need room, not pressure, not deadlines, not ultimatums, room. And room only exists when a man has a life beyond the relationship. This is where self-respect enters the picture. Not ego, not pride, not arrogance, self-respect. Because self-respect changes the way you love. A man with self-respect doesn't beg. He doesn't chase endlessly. He doesn't tolerate disrespect just because he's afraid of being alone. He doesn't abandon himself to keep someone happy. Not because he doesn't love deeply, but because he understands something important. Love without self-respect becomes self-destruction. And people can feel that. The moment you start negotiating your values to avoid abandonment, you begin abandoning yourself. You stop speaking honestly. You suppress your needs. You accept behavior that hurts you. You walk on eggshells. You become afraid of upsetting her. And eventually, your personality starts shrinking until one day you don't recognize yourself anymore. You become a stranger living inside your own life. And here's the painful truth. No woman falls in love with a man who has disappeared because there is no energy left, no direction, no center, only fear. And fear cannot lead. Fear only follows. This is why boundaries are so important. Not because boundaries manipulate people, but because boundaries protect who you are. A boundary says, I care about you, but I care about myself too. I love you, but I won't abandon myself. I respect you, but I expect respect in return. And healthy people don't run away from that. Healthy people feel safer around someone who has standards, because standards create trust. You know where they stand. You know what matters to them. You know who they are. And certainty about character creates emotional security. Many men confuse being nice with having no boundaries, but they are not the same thing. Kindness without boundaries becomes weakness. Generosity without boundaries becomes resentment. Patience without boundaries becomes suffering. And love without boundaries becomes dependency. True masculinity isn't about domination. It's about stability. It's about being able to remain yourself under pressure. It's about not losing your identity when emotions become intense, because anyone can act strong when life is easy. But real strength appears when things become uncertain, when she becomes distant, when she needs space, when misunderstandings happen, when anxiety enters. Most men panic. They chase harder, text more, demand explanations, seek reassurance. And every action screams the same thing, I'm afraid. But a grounded man responds differently, not because he feels no pain, not because he doesn't care, but because he understands something deeper. He understands that panic has never saved love, and desperation has never created attraction. So he stays centered. He remains calm. He gives space when space is needed. He continues living, continues working, continues laughing, continues growing, because his life didn't begin with her, and it won't end with her. And paradoxically, that attitude creates the exact emotional safety that relationships need, because nobody wants to become someone's entire world. That's too much responsibility. Nobody wants to feel that one mistake could destroy another person's happiness. Love was never meant to carry that burden. Love was meant to be shared between two complete lives, not used as a substitute for one. And perhaps this is the hardest truth of all. You cannot make someone stay. You cannot force love. You cannot negotiate attraction. You cannot convince someone to choose you. And the moment you truly understand something inside you begins to relax, because you stop fighting reality. You stop trying to control another person's heart. And instead, you begin building something far more important. You begin building yourself, and once that journey begins, everything changes. Not because women suddenly become magical creatures who fall in love with you, but because you stop needing them to. And strangely enough, that's the moment when your presence becomes different, calmer, stronger, less needy, more authentic. And authenticity has a power that no technique can imitate. Because people trust what is real. They always have, and they always will. But there is something even deeper beneath all of this, something that explains why certain men create emotional connections that seem almost effortless, something that has nothing to do with looks, money, status, or clever words, something much deeper. And once you understand it, you will never see relationships the same way again. At some point in every man's life, there comes a moment when he is forced to choose, not between one woman and another, not between staying or leaving, but between two versions of himself. The version that constantly asks, "How do I make someone love me?" and the version that quietly asks, "How do I become someone I love being?" Those two questions seem similar, but they create completely different lives, because one question comes from fear, and the other comes from freedom. Most people spend years trying to master attraction. They study messages, body language, psychology, dating advice. They search endlessly for techniques, as if love were some complicated formula waiting to be discovered. But life has a strange way of humbling us, because eventually, after enough disappointments and sleepless nights, many men discover something shocking. The men who seem to attract the deepest love are often not trying to attract anyone, not because they don't care, not because they're emotionally unavailable, but because their identity doesn't depend on being chosen. And that changes everything, because people can feel when you are trying to get something from them, and they can feel when you're simply sharing who you are. One creates pressure, the other creates connection, and connection has always been far more powerful than persuasion. Have you ever met someone who seemed calm even during difficult moments? Someone who didn't panic when plans changed? Someone who wasn't trying to prove anything? Someone who listened more than they talked? Someone who made you feel accepted without making you feel trapped? People like that are rare, not because they possess some magical secret, but because they have something most people are searching for: inner peace. And perhaps that is what human beings are truly attracted to. Not perfection, not beauty, not wealth, but peace. Because the world is already filled with anxiety. Everyone is worried. Everyone is rushing. Everyone is trying to become enough. And then, once in a while, you meet someone whose presence feels like coming home. Someone who doesn't need anything from you. Someone who allows you to breathe. Someone whose happiness doesn't depend entirely on your next text message. Someone who enjoys your company without demanding ownership over your life. And suddenly, being around that person feels different, because peace is contagious, and emotional peace creates emotional safety, and emotional safety creates trust, and trust creates intimacy. And intimacy is where love begins, not in grand gestures, not in expensive gifts, not in perfect words, but in the feeling that you can lower your guard, because underneath all attraction lies one hidden desire, the desire to be fully seen without being controlled. And that's what secure people offer. They offer freedom, not chains, because love was never supposed to feel like prison. Love was never meant to feel like anxiety. Love was never designed to turn two people into emotional hostages. Real love creates more life, not less. Real love expands you. It doesn't shrink you. And perhaps that's why some relationships fail. Not because the love wasn't real, but because fear slowly replaced freedom. Because one person became afraid. Afraid to lose. Afraid to disappoint. Afraid to be abandoned. And fear transformed love into attachment. And attachment transformed affection into pressure. Until eventually, both people forgot who they were. But healthy love works differently. Healthy love says, "I want you, but I don't own you. I love you, but I don't control you. I appreciate your presence, but I don't depend on it to survive." That's maturity. And maturity is deeply attractive. Not because it's exciting, but because it's rare, very rare. Because most people don't know how to stand alone. They know how to distract themselves. They know how to stay busy. But being alone without feeling lonely, that requires something deeper. It requires friendship with yourself, and that's where everything begins. Because the relationship you have with yourself becomes the blueprint for every relationship you create. If you constantly abandon yourself, you will attract relationships where you feel abandoned. If you constantly doubt yourself, you will seek endless reassurance from others. If you don't trust yourself, you will struggle to trust anyone else. But when you learn to enjoy your own company, something beautiful happens. You stop chasing, not because you've given up, but because you're no longer running from yourself. You stop needing constant validation, not because you became cold, but because you finally understand your own worth. You stop fearing loneliness, because you realize loneliness isn't the absence of people. It's the absence of connection with yourself. And when you reconnect with yourself, you stop treating relationships as rescue missions. You stop expecting another person to heal wounds they didn't create. You stop making someone responsible for your happiness. And that changes the energy you bring into every interaction. Suddenly, love becomes lighter, more joyful, more natural, because you're no longer asking, will she stay forever? You're asking, can we create something beautiful together while we're here? And ironically, that mindset often creates stronger relationships, because people don't want to feel trapped. They want to feel chosen, again and again, every day, not because they have to, but because they want to. And that brings us to something very few people talk about: absence. Not manipulative absence, not fake indifference, not playing hard to get, but natural absence. The kind that comes from having your own life, your own dreams, your own purpose, your own friendships, your own passions, because when your world doesn't revolve around one person, your presence becomes valuable, not because you're unavailable, but because you're alive. And alive people have energy. They have stories, goals, experiences, depth. And depth creates attraction, not because it's mysterious, but because growth is attractive. People are drawn toward life, not desperation. And perhaps that's what women feel most deeply. Not your muscles, not your money, not your perfect words, but your relationship with life itself. His posture different, his energy different. Not because he's trying to impress anyone, but because he's moving somewhere. And movement is attractive because nobody wants to board a ship whose captain has no direction. And this is where the greatest misunderstanding about love finally disappears. Women don't fall in love with perfection. They don't fall in love with men who never make mistakes. They don't fall in love with endless sacrifices. They fall in love with authenticity, with consistency, with emotional strength, with the feeling that they can relax without losing excitement, with the feeling that they are loved without becoming responsible for another person's identity. And perhaps that's what every human being wants. Not perfection, not obsession, but peace. The peace of knowing that someone chooses you freely, not because they need you, but because they genuinely enjoy sharing life with you. And if one day someone walks away, if one day someone decides you're not the person they want, then let them go with dignity. Not because it doesn't hurt, not because you didn't care, but because your value was never dependent on their decision. You were someone before they arrived, and you will remain someone after they leave, because your worth was never theirs to give, and it was never theirs to take away. Remember that, because life has a strange sense of humor. The moment you stop chasing approval, you become free, because in the end, relationships come and go. People arrive, people leave, seasons change, but there is one person who will wake up with you every morning for the rest of your life. One person who will witness every victory, every failure, every heartbreak, every dream. That person is you. And if you learn to stand beside yourself with loyalty, with patience, with respect, then no rejection will destroy you, no breakup will define you, and no absence will make you forget who you are. Because love was never meant to complete you, it was meant to accompany you. And once you understand that, you stop asking, how do I make her fall in love with me? And you begin asking something infinitely more powerful. How do I become a man who feels at peace with himself? And perhaps that question is where everything truly begins. Because the strongest men are not those who conquer others. They are the men who conquer their fear, the men who remain themselves, the men who love deeply without losing themselves, the men who can open their hearts without surrendering their dignity, the men who understand that love is not possession, love is presence, and presence cannot be forced, it can only be shared. And that, perhaps, is the truth nobody told you. The more you become whole, the less you need to be chosen. And strangely enough, that is when you become unforgettable.